and Kelley.
Welcome back to Hancock and Kelley. Okay, it's time for that every 4-year question. How you doing? All right, it's the question that Ronald Reagan made famous. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And look at these numbers here by Gallup. At the very top is what they got just a couple of weeks ago. 56% of Americans say they are better off now than they were 4 years ago. That, by the way, higher than any time this survey has been done, dating all the way back to 1984. Now, interesting, Michael, I had quite the discussion on Facebook about this one this week. What are your thoughts about this number being this high?
I don't know. Maybe it's because we're spending so much time with our loved ones and everybody's feeling good about that. But yes, it was a good barometer of a question in the past, but I'm not sure it necessarily holds up in the midst of a pandemic when millions of us are getting sick and almost 250,000 of us have died.
Yeah, John, I made the point that, people do well and they do poorly regardless of who's in office. I think a lot of it is mindset, and a lot of people on Facebook didn't like that answer, oddly enough.
Well, look, you've got a situation where we've had, on the economic policy side, conservative economic policy, tax reform, tax cuts were enacted. People are doing better. They're keeping more of what they earn because the government's taking less of what they earn. And it's no surprise to me that that number is high. One of the things that alarms me about a potential Biden presidency is that all of the tax cuts of the last 4 years are going to go away, and they're going to be replaced with tax increases. People will not be doing better off when the government is taking more of your money than currently is happening. That is an underlying statistic, by the way, that does bode well for Donald Trump if he makes a comeback here in the last 3 weeks. Part of that comeback is going to be based on his economic policies.
Okay, and that, by the way, was discussed during the vice presidential debate. If you guys think back, that was this past week, right? It seems like a million years ago. Let's talk about it here. It's hard to believe that was only 4 or 5 days ago. John, you're up first on this one. Did the VP debate do anything to sway anybody? Because as we said, it was the most important vice presidential debate of all time, yet we're not talking about it 4 days later.
Yeah, I mean, about the only thing that's significant to come out of that is that by now the fly is probably dead. But no, I don't think that debate changed many minds. I think Joe Biden. I think Mike Pence clearly won that debate, and Kamala Harris acquitted herself fine. Mike Pence expressed and espoused a conservative point of view about the role of government, and that was kind of refreshing if you happen to be a conservative. And I think he acquitted himself well. But will it matter on the trail much? I don't think much.
Yeah, Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, so probably wouldn't surprise you. I think Kamala Harris won the debate. I thought she did a fabulous job. Look, it's more than likely that one of these two people is going to be our president in the next 4 years. The debate was boring. Why? Because we actually talked about some issues. One of the things that I found most startling, John, is we had a very serious discussion about the peaceful transition of power, because the president of the United States will not agree to peacefully transition power. This is crazy. What are we living in, a third world country, or is this the United States of America? That was actually a debate question.
All right, let's talk about the Missouri gubernatorial debate that was held on Friday. Most people didn't know it was held on Friday. Looking at the ratings, most people didn't watch it on Friday. The only thing we saw, all 4 candidates on stage. That was a big change. The big topics were, did the governor handle the pandemic well, Medicaid funding, things like that. By the way, the latest Real Clear Politics rolling average has Parson up by about 10 points. So Galloway, now going into the final few weeks here, has some work to do. So Michael, you're up first on this one. It was one of those where I think all I did was hear a lot of the campaign ads, only by them saying it this time, I think.
Well, it was a classic incumbent strategy. Mike Parson doesn't want to talk about his record, doesn't want to talk about his failure with COVID, doesn't want to talk about the failing economy in the state of Missouri. Therefore, he doesn't participate in any debates. Oh, yeah, he did one on a Friday in the Lake of the Ozarks when nobody was there, nobody could see it. It's a good hiding technique. At the end of the day, he has to run on many of the same issues that Donald Trump is. And if you watch polling in the state of Missouri, Donald Trump won by 19 points. He's only up by 2 or 3 in polling that we see right now. Donald Trump is going to be a drag on Governor Parson, and hiding's not a good strategy for the governor.
John.
Well, look, Missouri's unemployment is much lower, substantially lower than the national average. It's lower than the states that surround us. Why? Because Mike Parson has taken a measured, consistent approach to dealing with the virus in the state. And he has a very good record to run on. He has increased the workforce development in the state of Missouri. He has put money into infrastructure in the state for the first time in a generation. He's going to win re-election. He is ahead in the polls. The president is also going to carry the state of Missouri, and I think Republicans are going to sweep the statewide ticket in 3 weeks. And the debate itself, I think, was fine. I don't think many people saw it, but if you did, Mike Parson, I think, made a very solid case for re-election.
All right, still to come here on Hancock and Kelley, a tax vote in Illinois. We all know the land of Lincoln facing some economic troubles, but is raising taxes on high-income earners the right way to go about it? Or will it lead to more people fleeing the state? Going to play a little U2 on the way out today, just to keep Michael Kelley happy.